Yo, atta girl.
There we
Welcome,
go.
everybody. It's going to be great today. We've got Chris Hardee from Proagent. For those of you guys who don't know him, you will hear pretty soon. Michelle, I'll go ahead and let you introduce who Chris Hardee is. I can tell you what, guys, he is an absolute monster down in Houston, Texas. Brought his whole brokerage over to EXP, and the principles that he has with the brokerage that he runs down there is just unmatched. I think you guys are going to find a lot of value in what he has to say because he goes hard in the paint. Every once in a while, we bring people on who are like our people. Chris Hardee is definitely one of our people. I enjoy working with him. Michelle, can you kind of give us his background?
Yeah, and so you guys are in for a big treat today. If anyone, you guys probably, now that you see his face, now that you see the name, you see Proagent, you've seen us share content from Chris. Both Cooley and I, we push stuff out. Chris with his office, Chris and Yolanda. So just quick background story here. So we've been good friends. We've known each other for years in the industry through the Mike Ferry organization. Chris and Yolanda owned their Century 21, then went and built out their own independent. They've now come over as Proagent in partnership with us out of the Houston, Texas market, and they drive a badass operation there. Chris, just real quick here, how many agents are in Proagent now?
I would say like on the team itself, roughly probably 45 to 50.
Okay,
like
I thought it was roughly
team.
there.
Yes,
If you guys watch any of the content that we've pushed out from these guys, if not, all of you guys need to follow Chris and Yolanda right now because Chris is constantly pushing out gold and you see us share it all the time. But just like Cooley was talking about, when you talk about alignment, when you talk about just power and drive in the industry and passion, what Chris and Yolanda are doing is they've been running a sales coaching organization from the very beginning. And so they're bringing massive talent through there. You guys have seen us sharing the Breakfast Club. It's at 5:30 a.m. Pacific for those of you guys with me here. And just the results and the agents and the accountability structure, the systems, you guys, that are being run out of their operation is pretty impressive. So we wanted to bring Chris on here today to share with you guys, not only just as top producers and leaders as coaches in the industry, but just to be able to speak to like, what are the badasses out there doing, right? Who are the ones getting results? That's who you want to be following. That's who you guys want to hear from. And Chris is going to speak to, when we talk about the things that it takes to really dominate what you're doing right now, right? When we talk about mindset, we talk about skill, we talk about execution. And I know Chris is going to share some specific strategies with you guys, right, Chris? So everyone can leave today with strategies, things to take away. We will have time for Q&A afterwards. But that's how we know each other. Chris, they've partnered here with us, with co-founders. How long ago, Chris, would you say?
Oh my goodness, you're gonna be better than me. Has it been 5 months, maybe 4 months, 5 months?
I don't know if it's
Probably
been that
about
long,
4.
but probably about that
Probably
long.
about 4.
After when you talk to Cooley every day, it feels long enough.
We'll see a lot more Chris and Yolanda, but Chris, thank you for coming on here. It's a treat to have you come in and talk with the co-founders, a lot of guests. I know you're going to bring a ton of value. So let's dive right in.
Can I ask a question really quickly? Because before you get into your content, this is really important. So we got a lot of people who are trying to bring co-founders in, right? Chris, you own a really successful brokerage in Houston, right? And you decided to fold that into the co-founders group. A lot of these people would think like, well, why would an already successful broker owner want to flip his whole brokerage into EXP and partner with the co-founders group? Can you just give us some of that really quickly before we jump into the content today?
Man, what a great question. So, I'm very like kind of like Cooley is probably so honest that I know Michelle probably is like, watch what you say, Cooley, watch what you say, Chris, right? You have never met
for lunch in it.
Hey, Michelle, can we get somebody muted? Whoever's talking.
Yeah, I accidentally muted you, Chris.
Why did you mute Chris? Was it
on
Chris?
accident. I did mute him.
Now he can't unmute himself. I just hijacked this whole meeting. Just ruined it.
Hold on. Am I good?
There we go.
I'm good. No, great question. I was probably the biggest EXP hater. I trained everybody to, in my organization, Yolanda and I, we kind of just Yolanda wasn't as much of an EXP hater as me. She probably was more interested in it than me. It was my ego. And it was also, let's be real, there's a lot of people that try to sell EXP and they don't really have the good intentions. And it's not EXP for that. There's people like that at Keller Williams, Remax, any company. And I used to see a lot of people that were like this, giving off this something for nothing mentality of just getting people in your downline, and they're going to work and they're going to make you money, and like that's how life is going to be. And I hated that something for nothing mindset. And so that's how I kind of like correlated EXP and in my mind. And when we had that conversation with Michelle, like this light went off in my head, and I go, I'm such an idiot. And the reason why I was an idiot is because I didn't realize like the real play with EXP, with co-founders of Proagent. Yolanda and I are pretty successful as business owners and sales trainers and all that kind of stuff, right? However, we don't make the money to where I can go and hire Michelle for $600,000 a year, Cooley for $600,000 a year, somebody else for high income earners, right? Or $1 million a year. I would be broke. I'd be in debt. I wouldn't know what to do, right? But this model sets it up to where if you really get with the right people, they're going to go to work with you in your own organization, right? And so now if somebody wants to join EXP with us, they get me. They couldn't afford me. Like, is Keller Williams going to say, hey, Chris, come be our manager for $1 million a year at our, Keller Williams down the street? They couldn't afford to do that kind of stuff, right? But the way this synergy works with EXP, now when I think of Proagent, it was the leadership of Yolanda and I, and now we look at it, now it's Yolanda, it's myself, it's Cooley, it's Michelle, and then now it's taught us how to bring other people that are within the team on board to become leaders. And now it's like, hey, let's make this cabinet, this boardroom of people that we couldn't really pay for, but since we're in business with each other, we're going to get to work, and we're all highly incentivized, right? And so that's kind of what brought us into it, because I was thinking, another thing that took place for Yolanda and I is I would post some content on Instagram, and I would get people from all across the U.S. going, hey man, how can I be a part of Hardee and Company? And yeah, I can coach people, I can do that kind of stuff on a monthly basis. But what you find is that people not only want to be coached by you, they want to be coached by you, but they also want to be like on your own team. They want to, like, if you're a Packers fan, you don't want to just get coached by the Packers coach. You want to be on the Packers, right? And so there's going to be people who hate the Packers on this, of course, but it's just an example, right? Like he's raising his hand. And so when it comes down to it, it was like, well, what are the logistics of me and Yolanda taking our independent company and starting another one in Louisiana and Alabama and in the rest of Texas and Florida and all across the United States? Well, we could do that, but I feel like for 10 years, we would probably get not as far as 10 years if we just aligned with the organization and a brokerage that takes us globally instantly, right? And, is there a little bit less money maybe per deal on some of this stuff? But that's the small thinking, right? It's kind of like when agents get in the business and they're always worried about like how much they're gonna, how much their split is, but then they'll give commission away doing stupid things, they'll give a buyer rebate, they do all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of that kind of just encompasses why it made sense for us. Hey, how can we get in front of as many agents as possible sooner than later and help those people out? And the cool thing about building a downline or co-founders of Proagent, I can try my best to find 5,000 people in Houston that share my vision and want to be a great salesperson, but we can all agree that it's going to be easier for me to find 5,000 people across the United States versus 5,000 people in Houston that share those same ideals and goals. And so why would I limit ourselves to being in Houston and taking forever to like get in this one state, and we could just dominate it the right way from the beginning with the right people around us. And that so far has been Michelle Cooley, with co-founders.
I love it. I love it. And I'm glad that you said that. So for all of you guys who are wondering why a broker owner would join and be a part of the co-founders group, like, don't be afraid to reach out to Chris and ask Chris, why did you join, right? What are some things that were important to you? And he'll be happy to break that down for you more specifically to give you the confidence to go out there and do what you want to do. He's going to be sharing 4 ways to dominate in today's market today. And man, this guy is really into the coaching, training, really dives deep into his agents. And all of his content is amazing today. It's 4 ways to dominate the real estate market. Chris, I'll yield to you. Let's go. Can we just welcome him real quick after that, please? We just give him some love.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much.
You just have to dominate.
Sorry, and I'm already over here already sweating. I'm sick and I'm sweating. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing like Michelle was saying, I'm going to cool it off. I'll take one topic and just run for an hour with it, right? But you know what? The thing about somebody like Cooley or somebody like I is that our biggest goal, I think at times, if we can leave you and you can just get 10% of our freaking energy and you can take that on throughout your day, you're gonna do something with it. And people are like that kind of stuff is contagious. People really want that kind of energy. Your clients want that kind of energy. Everybody is looking for that special person, and you have that superhuman version within yourself. And what I want to be able to do today is really break down how can I become the superhuman real estate version of myself. Please write that down for a second. You know, the superhuman real estate agent business person, because in all of our minds, right, there's that superhuman version of ourselves. And some of us do a really good job at getting to who that person really is. And some of us feel like we're so far away from that person. And I want to break down through these 4 pillars, how if you work on this stuff on a daily basis, that these are the metrics that are going to confine you towards success and not put you in a position where you're in that roller coaster of real estate. Cooley Michelle said something earlier, you know, and it reminded me of what our company is. We're not a real estate company. We're a real estate coaching company that just happens to sell real estate, right? And so you have to ask yourself, who is my coach? Who is your coach? Are you allowing somebody like Cooley and Michelle or somebody like myself or my wife to actually lead you? You can be a part of a meeting like this. You can go, oh man, some of that shit sounded pretty good, but what the hell are you actually going to apply today? And are you going to allow people to start keeping you accountable to the shit you want to do so you can become that superhuman version of yourself or not? Let's think about this for a moment. You guys were talking about Washington, talking about football and stuff, right? If you had an image of your favorite and best football player, regardless of position, right? What are the 4 things you would want that person to have? Wouldn't you want them to have a powerful mindset? Like, would you even be a fan of a football player that had a poor mindset? How many great football players or basketball players or any type of people like that do we see? And we hate their mindset, so we're not a fan of them, right? Well, imagine how many people probably feel like you. And so think about you as a real estate agent. If you're that real estate agent that has a poor ass mindset all the time, and it's always somebody else's fault while I'm not becoming successful, and you're not really, you know, doing that checkup from the neck up every single day, not once a week, not when things are starting to go bad, like every single day, actually doing that checkup from the neck up. How is my mindset? What am I feeding my subconscious? What is that self-talk looking like? Then you're probably not going to be at that peak performance level. And then if we looked at that football player, we said, hey, does my favorite football player have a poor skill set or a high skill set? We're going to probably think, man, this guy probably works on his skill for 5, 6, 7 hours a day, right? And that's just for the football. Then you got to work on, you know, diet and all these things, right? And so I would want that football player to have a powerful skill set. And then the next thing I would go is, hey, is this the Tom Brady? Like, is my favorite football player like a Tom Brady who can't get off of looking at game film and is investing their time looking into the strategies and the game film and what's taking place so that we can win each and every single week? Or is it somebody who's lazy and doesn't participate in those things? We see what happens with those kind of football players. Who's the guy at A&M that, you know, everybody was talking about for a while? He didn't show up to practice. Johnny Manziel. He didn't show up to practice. What happened? Bye. You know, now now it's a gimmick, right? And so we would want our favorite football player, and I'm just going off football player, right? It could be a doctor. If somebody was going to work on your mother's heart today, do you want the doctor with the powerful mindset or the poor mindset? Do you want the doctor that has no skill set? Do you want the doctor that follows a strategy that you like and agree with? And do you want somebody that's going to execute at the highest level, right? And I kind of want to break those things down. So make sure that on your piece of paper or whatever you're writing down, I want you to just write down mindset, skills, strategy, and execution. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this works for people in our team, and especially the people that are on our team that are committed the most. And I'm going to start it off with this. I remember that I watched this video one time and they talked about Tom Brady. And they talked about people like Tom Brady, people like a Brett Favre. You know, Brett Favre played his best football game. I think it was against Seattle. And I think, I may be wrong, it was against Seattle. And 30 minutes before the game, guess what he found out? His father died.
Yeah, died.
Right? His daddy died. You know, what you realize about the Tom Brady's and the Brett Favre's and the people that are just the best of the best, right? what you find is that when life hits them, they kind of keep going. They get in this position where they never really fall below that 90%. If you would see a Tom Brady, something can happen in his life, but nothing is going to get him to perform less than a 90%. I want you to think about yourself for a second. If you have kids and they create excuses for you that, oh, I can't work today because of this and that, or your wife or your spouse, or I don't feel good today, or my mom called me with some bad news, or my sister's talking about this and there's drama over here. How well are you currently in your life and in your business, just overall, committing to a 90% to 100% execution on every single thing that you should be doing? Or do you fall at the whim when things kind of blow by the side on you, right? And they kind of take you out of commission for a little bit. The people that are the best of the best have this insane standard of not really going too far below 100%. But what happens to most of us is that you can have a good month, a good 2 months, and then the next month, you're only performing at like a 20, 30% because something's going on in your life, right? And so how do we kind of really get ourselves in a position and get yourself, which is your own organization or our organization, to make sure that we're kind of, what happens when you're bowling and you put the side things up, right? I want to make sure that no matter what, we're going to knock down some bowling pins. And so this is the structure that we have kind of put into our organization that we've learned that our agents need. And this is what makes it to where a lot of our new agents can be signed up with us for a month and they can take 2, 3, 4, 5 listings, right? They don't know anybody. They could be 22 years old. They could just be out of college or maybe they didn't go to college. And in their first week, they take a listing. And it's because of the structure we have in our organization. So I'll give you guys an idea. Every Monday at 12 o'clock, we have a Pro Agent Power Hour. Well, this meeting for myself personally is a meeting to really get deep into everybody's mindset and to start getting them to share the right perspective of what it's going to take to get them to perform at a high level. And so what I do throughout that meeting is I'm probably going to ask 5, 10, 15 confrontational questions that they need to be asking themselves. And so what I want you to write down is, what are the 5 to 10 questions that I need to be asking myself on a daily basis to make sure that I am performing at that peak mindset? Because what's going to happen is it's going to start creating a standard for you on a daily basis. I may do this on a Monday, but that real Monday message is a representation of kind of the questions we need to be asking ourselves every single day, right? Because if you're telling me, oh man, I want my business to get better, but you're not working on a Saturday, you're not prospecting from 4 to 7 at night, if you don't have a listing appointment, you're not going to go door knocking or make some calls, then you're just really wanting to get lucky. And a lot of what our business has been set up upon is not having to be at the mercy. We don't pay for any Zillow leads. We don't do any of those kind of stuff. We just get on the phones, we have genuine conversations, and we work on these 4 pillars. And what happens is it makes it so we can dictate where our life is going to go, versus being at the mercy of like, I hope somebody's going to call me today and want to buy a house or sell a house, or I hope that Zillow lead is a good lead. I personally don't want to be on the mercy of anybody. I don't want you to have to be on the mercy of anybody. And so one of the first things you can do is just have a goddamn dominating mindset to make sure that that's what's going to get you there, okay? And so what are the questions you're asking yourself every day? What are you feeding into your subconscious? We talked about this in a meeting yesterday. One of our great agents, Alex Hunter, he was talking to me and he was like, man, I'm just having all these negative thoughts. And I go, hey, every time you have a negative thought, do 100 push-ups. Right? What happened the next day? Was he sore or not sore? He was pretty damn sore, right? Yeah, he never got a chest pump that big in his life, right? But what happens is that a lot of times we have these negative thoughts and we let them breed into more negative thoughts. But what's happening is you're not like recalibrating your mind and forcing yourself to stop thinking those negative thoughts. I just hate negative thinking. I hate being around negative people. And I know this stuff seems very simple and most of us feel that same way, but there's a reason why you may not be where you really want to be in your business. And it's because you're not really doing this at the deep enough level that you need to. You really need to make sure that you're not only trying to guide yourself, but you're around other people that are going to be so straight up with you that you just have to have a powerful mindset, right? Now, that's what happens for us on a Monday meeting. On a daily basis, yes, we're working on our skills. I want you to ask a question. I'm sorry. I want you to think about this for a moment. How much time am I actually working on my skills every day? Write that number down right now. Be real with yourself. Like, how much actual time? If I had to guess, most people are going to be 30 minutes or less a day. And if I had to guess, most people are probably only doing the Breakfast Club with Cooley. And the Breakfast Club with Cooley is amazing. It's so powerful, right? Like it's so intense, and you get to understand the mindset of a winner and how to get over objections and all those kind of things, right? But how many people, take advantage of that, but they never role play outside of that? And so you don't actually apply what you're learning, because you may not be the person he's role playing with that morning, right? You may not be the person he role plays with for a week or 2 weeks. And you're like, I'm sitting there watching this role play and I'm learning from it, kinda. But what's really happening is you're taking that role play and you're practicing on the real client. And that's where you kind of take things the wrong way. You need to make sure that you're probably having a high standard for working on your skills. So just like you need to work on that mindset every day, and I'm not saying with the mindset just like reading a book. I mean like being real with yourself so that you don't bullshit yourself. You could, me, I'm not the biggest book reader. I probably read the same 20 books 20 times, and they kind of say the same stuff, right? I can go back to a book and keep learning from it. It's the conversations I have with myself that help me grow the most. But then when it comes to those skills, it comes down to the agents in our office who probably spend at least an hour to 2 hours a day. They're the ones doing 4 or 5 deals a month. So if you're not doing 4 or 5 deals or more a month right now, look at that number that you wrote down. Is it 30 minutes or less a day? And if I can get that number to 1 to 2 hours a day, would it be worth 12 months from now closing 50, 60 transactions? And if you're such a goddamn good salesperson, what are you going to sell yourself on doing that shit? You know what I mean? Like, when are you going to do it? Because you're just going to sell yourself on not doing it. And that's why you don't sell any real estate. That's going to be the difference. So if you can't get very good at selling yourself on what you need to be doing with your mindset and with your skills, who the hell are you going to sell real estate to? You're not going to be that good. See, when I go meet with somebody, I really don't have to work on getting the listing too hard. They kind of just get who the hell I am. Don't you want people to just kind of get who you are within the first 60 seconds? And then they go, God damn, this guy's a winner. I want this kid to be my son, my brother, my dad, my this, my that, right? But if you're not good on selling yourself on the hard shit, then people can see through it and you look fake. And then they go, I don't get this good intuitional feeling. A lot of what I think personally helps me out is I really try to gauge how people are going to feel me intuitionally. I think we're very intuitional as people. I always say this story. If me and Cooley had our wives and we were in a cave, right? And our wives said, hey, is the coast clear? Can we leave the cave? And are we good to go? Is there any lions out there? If we came back to our wives and we're like, yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. You think she's going to believe us? You think intuitionally she's going to want to go out there? Hell no. But if we come back and we're like, we're good, we checked everything, let's get our asses out there and go do what we need to do, right? You need to be giving these people that you're speaking to on a daily basis such a positive and confident intuitional feeling, but that's going to come from you doing all the negotiating with yourself first, right? It's kind of like when you help people buy and sell real estate. You don't have to negotiate with the buyer's agent when you negotiate with the seller the right way to get the price right. But when you don't price it right, now you got to negotiate with all the buyer's agents because your property's on the market for too long, right? And so when it comes to those skills, I got to make sure I'm 1 to 2 hours a day working on those skills. And so every day in our office, it's built around that. If you come to, I know we're EXP and I know we're kind of in the cloud, but here we actually have like 7,000 square foot of space in this building. So if you were to come in our organization in the morning, there's probably 15 people here at least by 7 o'clock in the morning that are going to be role playing from 7 to 7:30, and then they're going to be getting on the call with Cooley at 7:30 to 8 o'clock. And by that time, there's maybe 20, 25 people in the room. I can't hear you. Cooley, you're muted.
Oh, they're breakfast clubbing before the breakfast club. It's crazy. I
I
jump on the breakfast club and they're like, excuse me, Cooley, we're breakfast clubbing right now. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Exactly. And so what happens is somebody, and the mindset, the skills, the strategy, the execution. Anytime somebody is having problems in our office, I always revert back to that. I go, hey, I know you're talking about this and this and this and that, but let me show you these 15 people in the room right here, okay? These people participate in all these aspects of those 4 pillars on a daily basis, and this is why they're successful. And then you ask that person, well, when's the last time you role played? When's the last time you did your listing presentation? When's the last time you did this, you did that? Well, if you come in our environment, like around this time, there's gonna be about 10, 15 people this time in the day role-playing their listing presentation. And so if you just look at that. If some of you agents that are watching this video or that are on this live right now, some of you have been in the business for 10 years, 15 years, and maybe you've done okay, but maybe you could have done a lot better. And there's agents that are coming in, the business that may adopt what I'm talking about, and they're going to do more business in the next 2 years than you've done in the last 20 years, just because of how much they're incorporating this in their business. And because what's going to happen is they're going to come in our office, they're going to do that for 30 minutes to an hour in the morning. They're going to spend 30 minutes role playing their side of a presentation sometime in the day. And then they're going to be the seller. So they get to learn the mindset of a seller. And if you're on this call and you've never actually bought or sold a house yourself, it's okay. You may be young and maybe who knows what the deal is. You just maybe never bought or sold a house before. Trust me, you don't understand how a seller really feels then. And so you need to be role playing, and not just role playing from the agent side, but you need to role play from the seller side to start really learning how a seller thinks. And then you can start understanding how to intuitionally give them the feeling of confidence that you're that right person, right? Now, the next thing that happens is every single week on Thursday, I have something called the Pro Agent Business Strategy Session. And so I spend an entire month, and it's week by week, and I'm going to break into a strategy. So I want us to talk about strategy real quick. And I know I'm going to be jumping all over the place, and I just hope you get a lot of value from it, though. When it comes to the strategy, one of the biggest things that we were talking about before we got on this call with Michelle and Cooley is that, too many people in real estate, they start a strategy. Like, for example, for sale by owners. Raise your hand if you hate for sale by owners. Let's be real. Anybody here hate for sale by owners? Ethan, you don't have to do that. I'm watching Ethan raise his hand. Yeah, I don't want them to raise their hands, right? See, the thing about it is that I talked about Ethan yesterday. We were in a meeting and I'm talking to Ethan, and I'm like, Ethan, you hate for sale by owners. I go, well, what happens is that we start building these things in our subconscious mind. We've all called it for sale by owner, and it gives us this horrible feeling. They don't want to hear us. They don't want to pay a commission. They hate real estate agents, all that kind of stuff. And we get this weird rejection, and then we don't want to call again. It's the same thing as you getting on a skateboard and falling off and just going, I'm just not a skateboarder and I just fall off of skateboards. Well, that is a mindset that you can't adopt. But if you adopt the other mindset, which is, hey, I'm going to probably scrape myself, I'm going to get beat up a little bit, but I know that if I continue to work on this thing, I'm going to start to master this a little bit more, and I'm going to be able to skateboard around. And then one day I'm going to be able to do something else, right? But what's happening is a lot of times we feed our subconscious mind through this negative self-talk the wrong way. And so we start a strategy like, I'm going to call for sale by owners, I'm going to call expires. We don't get the response that we're looking for, and then we try to find something else that's going to be easier. And we're just and then what happens is we've had agents in our office that will go, they start off circle prospecting. Nah, I don't like that. I'm going to do expires because everybody in the office is doing expires. And then, you know what, I'm going to do for sale by owners. And then they try to come all the way back around. And I'm like, dude, if you would have just spent the last 6 months dominating expires or whatever you were going to do, I'm telling you, you don't even need to call that many different types of pillars in the beginning. If you wanted to be 100 deal a year, let's just say 50 deal a year agent, you could do that from circle prospecting. You could do that from for sale by owners. There's enough listings in your market. In our market, I guarantee by now in the day, there's probably been 800 new listings put on the market, right? There's enough listings out there that you can dive into one pillar. And so my recommendation for you, if you're not consistently getting like, let's say 15, 20 plus transactions from one pillar, then, maybe I'm not saying to like not work on more than one pillar, but don't leave that one pillar off to find luck in the other pillar that you couldn't find here. You're going to have to master that one that you're starting off with. And so what I've learned and from, Yolanda and I working with all these agents is that there are some pillars that I think we like the most, our agents like the most. And it's going to be the ones that Cooley works with you guys every day on. It's going to be the expireds. It's going to be for sale by owners, right? But my question would be for you is, we talked about skills right now. How much confident are you really with expireds? If I'm an expired, master agent, right? I want to be able to go to expired listings and go, hey, here are the last 30 homes I sold. 23 of those were expired listings with other agents, right? You want to start building that kind of book, that portfolio of people just like them that you've been able to help. And so instead of just getting off the horse so fast, make some big commitments when it comes to the strategies. And then, of course, you can learn how to do certain things better. But I'm telling you, you don't even have to be that good of a salesperson to get people to list with you. I know a lot of us, we get a little bit antsy about these things, and we lack confidence. We don't know if we can be that person that dominates expires or dominates for sale by owners. But in reality, at the end of the day, people are looking for somebody that is insanely enthusiastic about what they're doing. If you go to Marshall's, if you go to a gas station, anywhere, we are intrigued by people that are happy about what they're doing. And what's going to happen is if you're that agent that's just going from strategy to strategy, are you really that happy about what you're doing? You're not going to be that happy with what you're doing. And so you really have to sell yourself and go, hey, why am I calling expireds? Because if you're on this call and you're like, I'm calling expireds because I want to take listings, I'm telling you, I know that sounds like the simple way of looking at stuff. How you really have to genuinely look at it is go, hey, these people had their property listed by some bozo. Maybe they were nice people. You know, some of the people we list, the other agent was fine. It was them that was crazy, right? But I think in my mindset, when I think of expireds, I go, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm in the ER, and this person doesn't want to talk to me. Like, if you came in and you got in a wreck and your arm's hanging off, do you want me pulling on your arm? Probably not, right? However, do I need to work on that person's arm if the arm's falling off? Am I going to get a little bit of rejection in the beginning? But when that person leaves the hospital, are they going to be happy about the services that I rendered? So you need to be thinking about, hey, you know, the old Zig Ziglar quote, I get in life what I want by helping other people get what they want. That's how you need to attach your mindset to these strategies, whether it's an expired, whether it's a for sale by owner, whether it's your COI, whether you just circle prospecting, like just listed, just sold calls. My mindset would always be, nobody is going to take more care of this client and put him in a better position than I am. That's how you would want your favorite football player's mindset to be. That's how you would want your mom's doctor to be. So you need to adopt these things yourself and make sure that whatever strategy that is kind of encompassing in your business that you're really trying to get into, that there's a reason that you're doing it for that's not so selfish. You should go, hey, I need to have 50 people or 40 people or 20 people that are going through this problem that I'm going to help solve this problem. And what's amazing about this business, I'm going to get paid in correlation to that, to my services, right? Versus a lot of us are just looking, what's the easier pillar to get into, right? And then, you know, execution. When we talk about execution, I want you to write down the word accountability. The problem is we're not that good at keeping ourselves accountable, guys. Let's be real. If you were that good at keeping yourself accountable, you'd have the greatest mindset of all time. You'd work on your skills for 2 hours a day or more, right? You know, you would be so entrenched in your the strategy that you're doing that you would be up until 3 o'clock in the morning working on this stuff. And some of us are, because I know I can get like that, right? But a lot of us can't wait till 5 o'clock to come around and like, I don't want to think about this stuff anymore. I'm telling you, that's not the person that you're looking for. I want the basketball player on my team to be thinking about basketball when they're sleeping. You know what I'm saying? This is the kind of mindset that if you want to perform at a high level, we're going to have to get to. And so I would ask myself is, what kind of accountability structures do I have set up in my life right now? I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. So we have about 45, 50 people on our team. About half of those people have committed to being in accountability, we have two things. We have two groups that are accountability groups in the office, and they're very, very powerful. They're made up of the people that are probably doing the most production or on the way to do the most production, right? For them to be in that accountability group, they have to be in our coaching groups. And so what happens is on Monday and Tuesday, Yolanda's an amazing coach. She's just a great coach. And so on Monday and Tuesday, she's coaching those agents. She's going through their numbers. She's keeping them accountable, going through the week before, going over the goals for the week ahead, right? So in our organization, we've built this thing out to where every single week, on Monday or Tuesday, whatever your day is, you're going to have to, talk about what you did the last 7 days. So what do you have in place for that right now? Is there any structure where you're going to have to get in front of other people and go, man, I didn't do a damn thing I said I was going to do? If you had that, would you probably take more action? Would you execute at a higher level? You probably would. And so what I want you to stop doing is I want you to stop giving yourself the excuses to get away from accountability, because accountability is really going to equal execution in your business. The tips that I would have, if you're not a part of like the setup that like Yolanda and I have with our team, I would find those people within CoFounders or Proagent that are as obsessed about becoming the best superhuman version of themselves as you are. And I would be very cautious of having the wrong people. Sometimes it's the people you like the most, right? Sometimes your best friends that you're doing business with or that are part of this stuff with you are the people that will let you drop the ball or you'll let them drop the ball. It has to be fanatical. I remember I was listening to Jeff, I can't think of his last name. He's in New Jersey. Michelle would know his name. Jeff, the guy does a ton of real estate.
Clover?
Jeff Quinton.
Quentin, yeah.
So I remember Jeff Quinton said this to us one time. He goes, him and Danny Morrell kept accountability with each other. If they did not take 3 listings a week, they sent each other a $10,000 paycheck. So what kind of accountability do you have set up? I would say at the ground level, you have to do it by your word, right? But if you realize that unfortunately, it's unfortunate sometimes, that you don't hold your word to the standard that you need to in order to succeed at the highest level, then you need to put something on the damn line so that you understand that you're getting off track. Because I'm telling you, all you got to do is lose $10,000 once. And you're probably going to go, I got to go take some listings, right? And so the beautiful thing about Jeff is that Jeff said that him and Danny never had to pay each other the $10,000 because it was that solid of accountability. And so if you want to be that $1 million real estate agent, you want to be that person that people look to and go, man, this person's really committed and they've made this shit happen, right? Then you have to find out, well, number one, how strong is your personal accountability with yourself? And be real with yourself. Some of us can be very hardcore and accountable and keep ourselves very accountable. But I'm telling you, it's like less than 1%. It's less than 0.5% of the people that can really do this. And so by nature, you're going to have to find people that have the same mindset. And then you guys are going to be talking to each other each and every single day. You need to make it to where it feels like a job, right? Like, hey, I'm talking to these people one time in the morning, midday. So for example, in our office, every day at 8 o'clock, everybody's going to put their goals out there. By 10 o'clock, they put where they're at on those numbers. And by the end of the day, they got to put their actuals. And so if you don't and this is how our groups are, if you don't post your stuff, all the other people are like, hey, did you not do shit today? Where's your numbers? What's this? What's that? And before you know it, they put their numbers in, right? So we don't even have to worry about that stuff too much because everybody has just made that commitment to keeping each other accountable at the highest level. And they look at it to where if this other person that's in my accountability group is dropping the ball, then I'm dropping the ball. So I got to go have that come to Jesus moment with them and say, hey, man, this thing is really important. For this accountability group is really important. This coaching is really important. And I want to make sure that, we're winning this thing. And that has to be something that you get people to buy into. And you can find people within this powerful co-founders group to align yourself with in order to do those things.
I love that. Chris, this is like my favorite thing I wrote down. I just put accountability will equal execution in your business. I love that so much. Chris, before you jump on to the next one, I know you, and I think this falls in line with like the accountability, because I think that's one of the strongest topics that plays into probably all of these different 4 categories, right? And you mentioned, some of these like confrontational. I think of these as like accountability questions, right? That you ask. Did you say you do that daily or weekly with your group?
So the questions, that's usually on a Monday.
Okay, that's what I thought you said, on a Monday. If you were to say like the tops, I know you said there's several. If you were to say like the top 5 questions, and are these similar questions every week?
No, I think when you, it's kind of like just sales in general. When you become a really great salesperson, you learn how to ask the same question a million different ways.
Right.
Right. And so if the question asked the first time and you answering it the first time doesn't end up getting you the result, then you have to kind of work on what way can I put this question into play to get people to get the perspective that I want them to play. And so it could be something simple. It could be something that, hey, if we were to go back the last 6 months, what are the 5 things that you would change? And all of us could go back the last 6 months and find out 5 things we want to change in our business, or things that we've done or we didn't do the right way, right? And so, I'll give you a really great example, and I'll make it to where it's something that I didn't even create. I remember Greg Harrelson said this one time. Greg Harrelson said, what are the 5 things that I need to do less of what are the 5 things that I need to stop doing altogether? What are the 5 things that I need to do more of? And what are the 5 things that I need to start doing? So then you have 20 things right there, and you can get to work on that for the next 12 months, right? And so it's those kind of questions, right? And so things like this, what should I be doing less of? Well, I should probably do less of, you know, there's days where I don't have a listing or a buyer appointment in the afternoon, and I just go home. So instead of me doing that 5 days a week, why not make it to where 2 or 3 days a week, if I don't have a listing appointment, I'm going to go knock on 10 expireds, or I'm going to go call 20 expireds on the phone, or do for sale by owners or COIs, or whatever it is you're going to do. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to stop or this, there's certain parts of that when I hear that from Greg, and I'm like, hey, I may not just eliminate that 5, 6, 7 days out of the week, but maybe if 2 or 3 more days in the week, I made those extra 20 contacts, and I stacked that up over 40 work weeks, holy crap, I just did another 25 deals maybe, right? And a lot of times, you know, it's that little bit of extra effort. I see this all the time with people in the office. I'm like, man, I see them coming in and I see them putting in some work, but they're kind of like 5 hours or 4 hours less from where success really is going to be for them. Now, the problem is somebody else may come in the room and works half the time they do, and they get more of a result. So they're sitting there comparing themselves to other people. But the problem is that this is your own game. You're in your own lane, right? And so you have to go like, if I'm not getting what I want, you have to have this commitment where it's like, I'm not going to leave until I get one. Yeah. For example, and because I know I'm on a tangent, Michelle, it's like about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we started doing some of these accountability groups in the company. I had my own accountability group. So there was like three accountability group leaders, and I had like 4 or 5 guys on our accountability group. I made it very simple. You do not go home until you set at least one qualified appointment every single day. Do you guys understood what happened for every single person in that group that month? How many people do you think went home without an appointment the entire month? 0. And it was just a mindset. But what happens is you'll sit there and go, like, think about it. Who in here prospected today? You prospected it today? Like, let's be real. Were you 100% confident that you were going to set a listing appointment for today, to go on to today, to go and list today? Or were you like, if that happens, that'd be cool? That's the difference between you and a 100 deal a year person, right? Because if I go like, and I'll tell you a little something. I was the biggest scaredy cat of prospecting. I used to hide in an office because I'm so expressive that when somebody rejects me, I'm like, oh my God, they hate me. And I just put myself out there. So I used to hide in a room, in a little cubicle with the door, and I wouldn't prospect, right? And then I just realized, like, man, I have to just make sure that if I do this, I get exactly what I want out of this. And then my mind transformed. I got into some coaching. I did all that kind of stuff. But what really happened was I just set an expectation. I used to go, hey, I'm going to print out 15 to 20 for sale by owners from Zillow. I didn't have a dialer. I didn't do none of that kind of shit. I just printed it out from Zillow, and I go, I got to set at least 3 appointments a day. And I didn't give myself the option. And instead, I even upped the ante. I would get people around me and go, hey, watch this call. I'm going to set 2 appointments in a row. I want you to watch me, right? So what kind of pressure do you put on yourself? Are you just kind of going into this day-to-day grind going, hey, I'm going to go talk to 20 people today, and I hope something comes from it? Are you looking at it like, God damn it, I'm not leaving this freaking room until I set an appointment in the next hour? That has to be your mindset. That mindset shift gets you the result that you're looking for, right?
Man, Chris, that's so huge. That's so huge, Chris. And I like how you asked everybody to raise their hand. How many of you guys prospected today, right? How many of you guys left without getting an appointment? The last question that I thought would be the most powerful would be, how many of you guys feel like you have the capability of setting an appointment if you want to, right? And let me just see a show of hands really quickly. If you guys wanted an appointment today, how many of you guys believe that you have the skill set and the capability to do so?
Yep.
And that's the crazy thing. So then you have to ask yourself, why the fuck aren't you? You know what I mean? And that's the toughest question of them all, Chris.
It's because you're raising your hand, but you don't believe it. You're raising, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to believe it. Hey, like, what's so cool about life, guys, is that everything that we have in front of us outside of the nature element, right? The building that I'm in, the cars that are driving by right here, all this stuff, right? It all came from a human's mind. Like your mind is so powerful. So when you actually have to, like in your deep subconscious mind, truly be crazy enough to believe that I set 2-3 appointments every single morning, or be definite about that number. If it's one, great, but don't leave the office. And what will happen is this, and this is what people, guys, I'm telling you, this is what people do not want to do. And it's because they're just bullshitters. And so don't be like this. If I tell somebody, like somebody sometimes will go, hey, I don't know if I can actually set an appointment every single day, right? But I know I can make 30 contacts a day, right? What they're not realizing is if they make that commitment to going, hey, I'm not leaving the office, or I'm not going to go do anything else until I set an appointment, the problem they have is they may be on a phone for 10 hours to get that appointment. And none of us want to be on a phone for 10 hours. And I understand that. But if I was to ask you, hey, if for the first month you made that commitment, I'm not leaving until I set an appointment, and it made you prospect for 5, 6, 7 hours, what would happen is each and every single day, that number would go down. It would take you less time to get that appointment because your mind, you would go, I cannot prospect for 8, 10 hours a day to do this. And so you'll start getting better. You'll actually go for the appointment more. You'll push more. You'll close more. You'll ask better questions. You'll give off this energy that people are like, holy shit, I got to work with this guy. And then what happens is 12, 24, 36 months later, you can set 3, 4 appointments every single morning and you only talk to 10 people. You know, and I've done this before. There's times where I've gone, hey, I know I can find 10 deals talking to these 20 people, and I've done it. And I just believed it. In reality, when you look at the math of that, it doesn't even make any sense. There was a time like a year and a half ago, somebody in our office goes, Yolanda and Chris, you guys don't prospect anymore. You probably don't even know how to do it anymore. I was like, what? I go, hey, I go, you know what? I'm going to call 20 people, and I think Yolanda and I were saying we're going to do like 10 deals. I called 20 people. We did like 17 deals, made 115 grand that month, just on our own personal production. I didn't talk to 100 people, 200 people. Honestly, guys, I don't have that in me. I got to get the fuck after it now. I got to get a result now. They know somebody that wants to buy or sell real estate. Like 5% of the world needs your services. 95% of them don't right now. But there's somebody that you know that needs that help right now. They can give you that referral. They may need to buy or sell whatever themselves, right? And so, you know, in the beginning, though, the issue is that we don't want to have to go talk to 50, 60, 70 people a day to start getting that number to inch itself down over time. Well, if it's worth it to you, if you really want to live that life, you want to make the money, you want to drive the cars, the vacations, all that kind of stuff, let's be real. It's probably worth 6 hours a day if it took that in the beginning to drop down to 5 hours, to 4 hours, to 2 hours. And then you could maybe be so skilled and so great as a salesperson that 1 hour is worth somebody else doing it for 6 hours, if that makes sense. Sorry, Cooley, I went on a crazy tangent again.
No, I like that. I like that. Chris, why do you think that, what do you think is the main thing stopping people from actually getting that one thing out of that day? I mean, what is it? Because I coach a lot of real estate agents. We're really heavy on that prospecting, right? And you'll hear a lot of people go, I'm going to set one appointment a day, right? And then they just don't, right? And then that becomes a lifestyle. That becomes a lifestyle, doesn't it? A lifestyle of, I'm just going to put my goals out there, and if I achieve them, great. If not, that's okay too. And it's this weird kind of indifference about where we're going. But if you were to ask people, I mean, there's real pain behind not scaling their business. There's real pain behind not making the kind of money that they want to make, or not being able to provide the kind of lives that they want to provide for their family. But they're given that choice every day. And it's just, I'm content not getting out of the day what I set out to get out of the day or out of the week.
Yeah, what a great question. There's a few things that come to mind, and some people may not like this, but what's happening
it already. The fact that you said that before means I'm going to like it. Go ahead.
I already like it.
Yeah, I know you're going to like it. You're somehow living off of somebody else. Like if your spouse makes money and you guys could get by with their income, that's a problem. Like what has to happen is, so I remember when after my first month of being in coaching, Yolanda and I, we get into coaching, we put like, I think it was like in 35 days, we put like 15, we sold 15 homes like in 35, 40 days, made like 100 grand, right? The next thing my coach told me to do is go buy that car you want to buy. So I just started making my expense, like, and people will say this is not a good idea, but what happened is that for me to survive, it was too cheap. And so if I didn't need to sell something or whatever, at that time, we're living in my mother-in-law's bed, living room, you know what I'm saying? In a mobile home in Magnolia, Texas, right? And, you know, our expenses were probably $1,000 a month. And so you could stay poor. But as soon as I made my expenses 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, I'm telling you, it probably cost us over 50 grand a month to survive. And so what has to happen is I don't have a fucking choice. I got to get after it. The message that I get to my people has to convey such a feeling and such a perspective that it gets them to understand that life is so precious. We got shit to accomplish. Let's get the hell after this thing, and let's make sure we're raising our standards. And so I would say for a lot of people, Cooley, it's because somehow they're living off the mercy of somebody else. So if you're young and you're still living with your folks, get the hell out of that house. I don't care if you got to live in your car for 6 months. One of our great recruiter, he lived in the office for 8 months, 10 months, just went and bought his own house. That, I tell you what, you get the fuck after it when you're living in the office, brother. You know what I'm saying? You're just going to get after it. And so a couple questions that come to mind is, how am I currently living off the mercy of somebody else, or living off the mercy of whatever money I've saved up? And what's going to have to happen? Because, you know, maybe it's some people are just competitive and they're going to get after it. And most of us are going to need to have this fear that we can't pay for something. Because if I said, hey man, you need to pay $20,000 in bills next month, and you're used to only paying $10,000, and you don't have any money to pay those bills, are you going to prospect a little bit different today? Yeah. I guarantee it. If you have any, you know, self-value and you don't want to foreclose and you don't want to lose your cars and you want to lose these things. And so I would be asking, you know, those types of questions and be real with yourself. Do you have somebody that's I don't have anybody that's going to save me. And so a lot of times the people that don't perform or feel like they can just leave at 3 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock and, hey, it's fine, I'm just going to go do this and do that. It's because somebody else is going to save them. You know, and how long do you want to live like that?
That's so funny. When I got into the mortgage business as a teenager, I closed my first deal and I made like 20 grand. I got that paycheck on a Friday. And by Monday morning, I came into my manager's office and I'm like, hey, Steve, can I borrow $20 for lunch? And the vice president of the company was there at that point. And Steve's like, man, I just gave you just made 20 grand for the first time in your life on Friday. And you're asking me for $20. The vice president of the company goes, hey kid, here's 100. This kid's going to make a lot of money. Go get him. Go spend that 100 today. Right. Because he realized that, like, oh, this kid's going to have a need for money. Right. Because he's so irresponsible with money. He's going to have to go out there and make a ton of money. He's like, you need me to co-sign for a car for you? Great. You need a mortgage? Yep. Let me know, kid. I'll do whatever you want. And so it's really funny too, because we've got an agent named Beverly Frey who her husband makes quite good money. You know what I mean? But she had that burning desire, like, of he makes a lot of money, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just going to be some housewife, right? I need to go out there and create a name for myself, a legacy for myself, prove to myself. And so, like, I guess the motivation is different, right? It's either dependency on somebody else, or it's a lack of fear, or it's just comfort. How do you get out of that comfort zone?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like, start watching. You know, Yolanda and I, we have a young boy. He's 4 years old. Julian, he's amazing. And every single day I just go, like, I just really think, you know, at what standard do I want him to be able to live and us to live? And a lot of times people are okay living at a lower standard. And, you know, there's people watching you. That little boy's watching us. You know, your daughter's watching you, your husband, your wife. Like, you could be the biggest inspiration for all these people around you. And so, you know, how are you performing to that? And you'll do more for other people than you will for yourself. And I love that story about Beverly, because it reminds me of, I believe her name was Fahad Assad. She was in Naples, Florida. She was a Mike Ferry coaching client. I think she's retired now. But they were probably worth $100 million or something. And her kids went to college. That's what I had heard. And her kids had gone to college, and she was like, you know what? I want to show myself that I could be successful. And the lady started selling 100+ homes a year that were like, you know, $2, $3, $4 million, $5 million each one, right? And she became a millionaire in her own right. That's a very rare thing. You know, and so if you're in a position where, you know, you have a spouse or you have money saved up, you have to find ways that are going to get you to actually be willing to go through the tough stuff, right? And if those things are not just mental competitiveness coming from yourself, it needs to be like, well, what are you going to do with your family? Like, if you have a decent sized family, a close family, 10, 15, 20 people, aunts, cousins, brothers, and realistically, a lot of these people can't afford to do something like a vacation. Start planning out some big goals. Go, you know what? I want to take my favorite 20 family members to Cancun this year for a week. How much is that going to cost you? I guarantee you put the numbers together, you're going to have to get your ass to work. And how cool is it going to feel when you're at that dinner table and you're there on the beach and you have 20, 25 people in the family sitting around you and you paid for everybody to go. And you know that would have never happened without you. Are you going to allow somebody else to have that responsibility? Are you going to pick up that goddamn responsibility yourself and you be that person that made that stuff happen? Right? I never want to. It's one of those things like, for example, Yolanda and I always talk about, if we're at a restaurant and people are splitting the check, I fucking hate hearing that stuff, dude. Like, just pay the fucking bill for everybody. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go out to eat with you if I couldn't pay the whole bill. It just would never happen. That's the kind of responsibility that you have to start taking on. If it ain't going to be you, then now you're sitting around watching who's going to be that person that's going to pay my bill, take me on vacation, put me in that house I want to be in. It's a lot easier for you to
I'm sitting next to you at EXPCon. Just FYI. We're all drinks on Chris. You guys heard that already on this meeting. So drinks on Chris.
Dude, my
Go
juices are
ahead,
flowing, man. Get it, man. I love it.
I know. Now, I didn't train this guy in real estate, but I am his fitness trainer, as you guys can tell. Man, Chris, I love your energy, man. I love what you bring to the table. I love the structure that you've created for the agents under Proagent. It's really amazing. And you see the guys just flourishing because, number one, they allow themselves to be accountable, right? It's no fun having a guy like Chris Hardee asking you tough questions as if you're like in prison. You know what I mean? Going, what are you doing? But it's super necessary because you've got to have somebody who forces you to be honest, right? And Chris, I'm sure a lot of people don't like you or get upset at you because you're confrontational with the accountability. And I'm the same way. And what I always tell people is, it's not that you don't like me, you don't like you at this current moment. You know what I mean? You just don't like you right now, because if you don't have confident answers to the questions that I'm asking you, you haven't explored that. And chances are, like, there's some place that you need to level up and get better here. And so what are some tangible things? Like, if you were to give these guys 3 actionable items today to implement right now in order to start getting on that trajectory that they want to be on, what would that be?
I would say, I'm hoping that, number one, everybody in this call, I'm hoping that everybody wants to probably do at least 24 plus transactions a year at some point, but if they're not doing that now, okay? And if that's where you want to be, 20 plus, 30 plus, 50, you want to be that kind of an agent, I would stop. And I know some of you guys, because I'm in an office, some of you guys are at the house hanging out, right? I would not stop being a salesperson every day until I at least set 1 pre-qualified appointment. I just would not. You could, if you're working from home, the EXP stuff, and it's great, and your wife's over there, your husband's over there, all that kind of stuff. You have to train the people around you. Like, they need to be locking you in that room that you're in, and you can't leave without an appointment every single day. And I would add on to that. Do it within the first 3 hours of the day, so that you're not sitting there till 8 o'clock at night. Just make that commitment. And it could be something as simple as like, hey, babe, let's go to lunch at 12 o'clock. And we're 100% going to lunch or whatever the case is, but we ain't going until I set an appointment. So now you're putting that pressure on yourself to get after it, make those contacts faster, all that kind of stuff. And then the next 2 things would be is, I would make sure that every day I'm working at least 1 to 2 hours a day on my skills, and I'm not going through the motions of the skill work. I'm not like having some half-ass role play. It needs to look like, when you're role playing with somebody else, it needs to feel like that Breakfast Club. And if it doesn't, you need to record your role playing and watch how horrible it is, so you can raise your standard for what you want that to look like. Look at your prospecting and look at your skills at like the time that you're doing it and your action that you're taking as if the world was watching. I guarantee you would perform at a higher level if you knew everybody's eyes were on you. But what happens is, if you role play with somebody and it's just weak, and you kind of get in that routine, you don't grow. It needs to feel like you're growing. Number 3, I would set something up in regards to accountability to make sure I'm forcing success in my business and making sure that I'm not lying to myself. Because if you just go, yeah, I'm not going to leave without setting an appointment, and I'm not going to work on my skills less than this time frame, but you're not keeping accountable with that with anybody else, you'll lie to yourself because nobody really knows what you're doing. And then now you're just in this pattern of trying to find other shit that's going to work for you. I'm telling you, be obsessed with this. Like, that's why Cooley and I probably love prospecting and stuff so much, because guys, we all know it's so hard. And what's so sexy about sales is that when you master that sales process, you realize that like you really have no competition, right?
Easy.
You have no competition.
Yeah, it's easy. I love it. And oftentimes your role plays, your accountability can turn into hee-haw the fuck around gang really quickly, right?
Yep.
And so you got to do yourself a favor and be the asshole that you need in your life to the other person, right? Be that master of accountability, and you'll find your people real quick, right? Because the first uncomfortable conversation you have with somebody, they're going to be deuces, and you're going to be like, awesome, you're not my people, you're not on my trajectory, I need a new accountability partner. Guys, who's got some questions for Chris? I know that we're running out of time here, but does anybody have any questions for Chris today?
Dude, I just have a
I can't
comment.
see everybody. There we go. Jason.
Dude, this is just everything that I needed to hear, man. I love this shit. This is such a good meeting.
Love it.
Thank you, man.
He's an animal.
This is exactly my problem. He nailed it right on the head. I've paid everything off. I don't have any incentive to go do more. So I need to go buy more so I have to work. I mean, if I
just got Sean Patterson into debt. Love it.
John, I love that you said that, because, my wife and I just got back from Utah, and we had never been to Utah before. It was beautiful. Guys, I am back looking at Earth Roamers on YouTube. I'm like, okay, the first one can be 100,000. The next one needs to be 200,000. The next one needs to be 500,000. Like, you got to go, John, you got to go, what's that thing you want to buy? And just go buy that thing and go, I got to go pay for that son of a bitch now, don't I?
No, exactly. And that I've always thrived doing that. I've always bought something that I couldn't afford and paid it off. I just kept doing that all my life, except now I've paid everything off.
Yeah,
there's no incentive other than bigger toys.
Exactly. It's easy. Yeah.
He's got two Corvettes in the garage, all these nice cars. It's all paid off. You need to create a little bit of trauma, Patterson. Yeah. But the cool thing is whatever you end up buying, like, that's good trauma, right? You're going to enjoy the shit out of it and go, oops, I got to pay for this now. Let's get to work. And you're damn good at your job, John, when you want to be. And so it's going to force that out in you. You know what I mean?
It. Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
Love it. Anybody else? Oh, come on. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I promise. He's a nice guy.
They're scared for sure.
Yeah. John Martinez, what do you got?
I got a question.
I'll start with the attitude. That's it. Mindset. Your mindset's got to be strong. You got to be, the old Mamba mentality, or else you're not going to get what you want.
Yep.
Being poor sucks. Tell you.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
So how long, you said that you're expressive and you would hate getting shut out. How long did it take you to get comfortable when you were making these calls? Because I know a lot of people struggle with this. So like, how long did it take? Was it 30 days? Was it 90 days? Like, before you...
I'm not comfortable with it right now. Like to give you an idea, like, this is what I mean. I'm not saying like I can communicate with anybody and I can get an appointment, and that's the mindset, right? I'll give you what forced it for me. And I think this is a problem that you can have when you're trying to prospect. If you're prospecting and you're like on mute in a prospecting hangout, you ain't doing this shit right, or like, you have to have people listening to you and hearing you. And so what happened for me is I got my wife to quit. I'm gonna try to make this as quick as possible. I got my wife, I talked her into getting in real estate. She quit college after 3 years. We were living in Austin, Texas. I got her to move back to Houston. And we were doing some things to like get some deals. I think we did like 40 leases in 6 months. We were still poor. We made negative money doing that. And I was supposed to be prospecting. My dad was a Mike Ferry coaching client for a long time. I knew what I should be doing, right? But I would just go in this room, and that phone, man, it was the heaviest son of a bitch in the world, right? And I would sit there, and I was just not doing it. My dad one day walks into the office because he was the owner of the company. He goes, Mike Ferry has Patrick Ferry is going to be in College Station, Texas, and there's going to be like 40 Mike Ferry agents prospecting there. And I was like, hell yeah. But in my heart, I was like, oh shit, I got to go prospect with these people that are all making like $500,000 plus a year selling real estate. And I'm like, oh my God. So I drive an hour and a half to College Station, and there's this boiler room set up. And it's very much set up like Yolanda and I's office now, where like 45, 50 people can be prospecting, right? And I go in there and I'm like, oh my God, can I go hide somewhere? Is my initial thought. And I take like 5 minutes to, I take like 5-10 minutes to start getting ready when I'm in there. And I remember Patrick Ferry just goes, let me help you. And he just picked up his phone, got my phone, told me to dial the numbers. He was dialing the numbers. And within 5 minutes, I set an appointment. I set 2 appointments with 2 people on the phone. So what I mean here is it was so forced. I'm talking to somebody about selling their house. I didn't even know the script. He's just like, read the script verbatim. I'm in the middle of setting up the appointment, and I look over at him, and he's still dialing. And I'm like, dude, I'm on the phone. You don't have to, like, I'm already doing one, right? And he's like, oh, no, it's all good. Somebody answers. He's like, just freaking answer. Who cares? And so I start doing this stuff. And what happened is you just force yourself to figure it the fuck out, right? You just have to figure it out. And so this is how excited I was at that moment, Jason. I realized, number one, I never went to those appointments. I didn't forget about those appointments. But what I realized that morning was like, dude, I'm making this such a big deal, and it doesn't need to be. I have what it takes. So you have to just tell yourself immediately, I have what it takes. Because what I was telling myself for months before that is that, like, I don't think I have what this takes, right? And so you have to make that commitment. Hey, I have what it takes. And then we got done with that. We went to a Mike Ferry event like 2 weeks later. I set myself up with some coaching with Yolanda. And then that next month, I just made sure, I go, this is what forced me. I go, okay, when I was prospecting by myself with nobody watching me, I would, just get away from the prospecting. I'd find something else to do. I'd scroll on Facebook, whatever the case was, right? But if I put myself in a position where I forced people to be around me and I talked up such a big game, my word was so important to me that I was not going to be that person that talked all that shit but didn't do that shit. So I would get 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the office, whether they were prospecting or not, and I would just tell them what I was going to do, and I would do that in front of them, and I wanted to show off. And so what I'm getting to is I want you to get in a position where you're rising above the pressure instead of falling to the pressure. And a lot of times we don't even set the pressure up to be big enough. And so since we don't do that, we don't have to get out of our own way enough in order to get to that. And so, I hate rejection, Jason. I hate all that kind of stuff. It clearly doesn't bother me anymore. But the number one thing that kind of got me through that is putting as much pressure on myself as possible, and then becoming that man that I want to become versus, just kind of conforming to like that bullshit that we all get in our mindset. And so if you're prospecting every single day, are you prospecting with other people, right? Are you letting them hear you? What do you get in front of your wife, your husband, anybody in the house? How was that call? You think that was good? Watch the next one. Watch the next one. You have to get crazy with this shit, And I'm telling you, how inspirational is that for those people around you? Have you ever heard some people on a pretty badass sales call? Don't you go like, holy shit? Well, then you got to create a highlight reel every day, right?
Yeah.
We want to see the highlights. You got to make some highlights.
Accountability equals execution. I love that so much. And Chris, also, right, do it as if the whole world's watching. And that's what accountability, comes down to. I know we got
Michelle, we have one more question from Jim's got his little hand up emoji. Jim, what do you got?
Probably a loaded question, but what type of prospecting do you do? I mean, all kinds, I'm sure.
I would say for like in our organization, I would say the number one thing, I would say 50% of our business is expired listings, at least, and, for sale by owners, but mostly expired, and then helping those people buy or sell other properties, referrals from those types of people. My bread and butter starting off, and it has always been, I'm not actively, Yolanda and I are coaching and training all day. We don't compete with the agents, so we're constantly helping them grow their business, right? But my thing was, since I was so much in fear of lead generating and prospecting, I put that pressure on myself to talk to the people that I knew would hate me the most. So instead of going, who's going to be the easiest person to talk to, why don't I talk to the person that doesn't want to talk to me the most? And what's funny is that's the person that actually needs your help the most. It's the for sale by owner. And so I just dominated for sale by owners, and I would kind of just set an appointment every 3 to 4 for sale by owners. And my lead follow-up wasn't the best, but it's because I would close so much on the initial call that a lot of my appointments would be for that day or the next day. And I would just get after it, right? If you're not able to close enough on the conversation in an organic, natural way, not just like some weird corny close 10 times on a phone call, but you know how to actually ask the right questions that tee up an appointment. If you're not asking for the appointment or going for the appointment 3, 4, 5, 6 times or more on the call, you're going to have a long follow-up game. If you only close once or twice on a call, you're probably going to have to talk to that person 4 or 5 more times. And so I would just ask like really powerful questions to for sale by owners. Like one of the most powerful questions that you can ask a for sale by owner is, are you married to the idea of selling this property on your own? Or in reality, are you just looking to net the most money? And if they answer that the wrong way, then they're retarded. Because if they're like, no, Jason, I'm married to the idea of selling this thing by myself, then they're an idiot. But if I go, Jason, let's be honest with each other. Are you married to the idea of selling this thing on your own? Or in reality, are you just looking to net the most money? And so if I can show you I can net you more money versus you doing this on your own or with any other agent in the marketplace, it'd be a no-brainer that we'd be working together. So what's going to be the best time I can break this down so you can make an educated decision? Would that be in 5 minutes, in an hour, in 3 hours? Let's get together, right?
Sound familiar, guys? It's such a dummy dumb proposition that you're either going to say yes, but how? Or something completely fucking crazy that solidifies that I don't want to speak to you anymore anyway. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the philosophy that Chris was just talking about.
How about this? And I'm sorry, because I even have an interview waiting for me, but this stuff gets, I love this shit. So learn how to ask questions where the yes is a no, or a no really means yes. What questions could you ask? Because what does your prospect want to tell you? No, right? So if I go, Jason, would it be crazy that we got together today for 15 to 25 minutes and went over exactly what it's going to take to net you the most money in the current market? Like, how simple is that? Would it be crazy? Yes, it would be crazy. Well, then that person would be an idiot. But they're like, no, that wouldn't be crazy. Okay, then what's going to be the best time? 5 or 6 o'clock. So, those types of things you need to play into that psychology.
You hear that audacity that he has to just be honest and upfront and straightforward? Guys, like the sales process, it's just that. It's, are you confident enough in your skill set and your ability to break the fucking rules that most people will never break, right? With FSBOs, most agents will just spend the next month, 3 months playing grab ass with a person, checking in on you, right? Rather than actually asking the tough questions, getting straight to the point so that person doesn't have to find out that person listed their property with another agent because you were too afraid to break the social rules. I love that. Chris, I know that you got somebody sitting there waiting to join Proagent, so we'll let you get to that. What an amazing culture you've got down there in Houston, Texas. And I know that's going to grow nationwide. Every single day, guys, in their chat groups I'm a part of, this is how many appointments I set. This is how many calls I made. This is how many contacts I got. This is how many emails I sent out. Every single day in the morning, they put in their goals, and come clockwork, guys, at the same time every evening, they're putting in their results. And the cool thing is just like Chris does, I call motherfuckers out in that group all the time, and they don't pout. They don't get mad. They don't say, Cooley, that's mean, right? They respond. Alec yesterday put up a big fat 0 on a Monday, and I'm like, hey, is that what you got today? Is that what you're bringing to the table? Another big fat 0? He's like, absolutely not. I'm getting an appointment today. And it's the culture of elevation, guys. But you got to be willing to participate in that culture. You've got to be the person that's not Debbie fucking Downer amongst your peers every day, and be the person in which the environment you want to be in. And I promise you, that creates a culture. That culture creates an attitude. That attitude creates winning. That winning creates the exact kind of life that you want for you and your family, but you got to participate. Chris, give it up for Chris Hardee, please. Gangster out of Houston,
Awesome.
Texas.
Thank you, Chris.
So good.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate you
Thank you
joining,
so much,
man.
Chris.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.